Welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be doing a review on this Cyelee CAT X Pro red dot. So this red dot is for your concealed carry pistols like the 43, Glock 43, 43X, 48, and the SIG P365 series. So you may say, well, why do you have that optic on a 10mm pistol? Well, this is the only optic or the only gun that I had that did not have an optic on it. And this, and along with my Glock 47 that you'll see in some of the other clips, I tested about 75% of this optic on my Glock 47 and then about 25% on this Glock 40 10mm. So before we go any further, I want you guys to know that Cyelee did send us this optic for free. They did not pay us to make this review or anything, but they did send this optic to us for free and told us we can keep it after we're done. So huge shout out to them. We're a really small YouTube channel just starting out, so it's pretty cool for them to send us an optic. But we told them we're going to be unbiased in our review and we're going to tell the truth and what we find. So here we have a good shot of the lens and the glass clarity itself. As you can tell, it has a slight blue hue to it, but it's nothing comparable to a Trijicon RMR. It's more along the lines of a hollow sun. It has very nice glass outside in the sunlight. Very clear, slight blue tint as you can see, like I mentioned, but not bad. What I really like about this optic is how bright the dot gets. It's hard to portray it accurately through the lens of this camera, but this thing gets nuclear bright. This is full blast, and if you look through it in a dark room, you can't see anything. It's just completely red, a big red dot with like bloom all the way around it. You can hardly see your target. So I run it usually about 4 to 5 clicks from the highest setting, and that's plenty bright for inside and outside. Outside I'll take it up a notch or two, but it's nowhere near full brightness. So holding down on the plus button, we'll go through our different reticles. Again, it's hard to tell exactly what they look like through the camera, but this is the big circle with no dot in the center. We hold it down again and we get the bigger circle with the dot in the center, kind of like an EOTech style reticle. Hard to pick up on this camera, but then hold it down a third time for about 3 seconds and we go back to the single dot, which is what I run all the time. I don't fool around with any of the other optic choices. Once you get the box, you have a nice red, white, and blue American flag box. All kinds of instructions and branding and just typical packaging. Lens cloth, informational card, just more information, how to zero. Warranty stuff is in here too, just a brief beginner's guide and explanation. One thing I will mention, this thing comes with a ton of different screw options. So whatever mount, pistol, whatever you have, this thing comes with a plethora of screws. So you should have no problem mounting this to your pistol. I don't know exactly what all they are for, how many different pistols have different screw patterns. I've mostly run Glocks, don't have any SIGs or anything like that, but this thing has a ton of screws, so you should have no problem getting this thing mounted up. One thing I noticed just a few minutes ago when shooting this pistol in these kind of hazy, overcast lighting conditions is that when you have the dot turned not high but not low, kind of in the middle, you almost get an effect where you see a slight halo of where some of the multiple reticle features would be. So you have the dot, the big circle with the dot, and then just the big circle itself. So you can kind of see, I just have the dot on and I can see where there's a slight kind of like 10% brightness of the big circle where it should be. It's almost like the emitter is shining a little bit of the light through, even though it's only on the single dot optic mode. So that's just kind of something I noticed, really only in these lighting conditions, like an overcast. On a bright sunny day, don't really notice it all that much, But also, if you point the optic all the way, almost all the way down, but you keep your same line of sight, you can see the words up in the very top of the window. I'll try to get some footage of this so I can put it in. And I guess that's where it says up right here by the emitter. And I guess it's just reflecting that somehow or another, but just another interesting little tidbit. So things like that, it's kind of where this keeps it in the lower tier optic. You know, it's not like a Holosun where you don't have that shadowing or the words in the optic. But, you know, at the end of the day, that doesn't, you only see it if you point the optic in a very weird direction. In the slight halo around the center dot, not that big of a deal. So for, you know, for $200, it's not something I'm gonna really be all that worried about. So looking at this optic on this Glock 40, this monstrosity of a pistol, this optic is really not that out of place. It's a decent sized optic. It's bigger than your RMR CCs and your 507Ks that you would see on like a P365 or a Glock 48, 43. But this optic is not out of place on a full-size pistol. As you can tell, with the 40 especially, there's a little bit of overhang of the actual slide where the optic does not cover, but that's really no big deal. The one thing that I love the most about this optic is you see how far the glass is set back and how much this hood protrudes out, protecting that optic. So, you know, if you're racking it off of something, it's really going to protect that glass. You can see the glass is hardly visible. It's definitely not visible or protruding from this front angle. You have to kind of turn the pistol and see how far that glass is tucked back up in there, which is a really good thing for keeping the glass safe. So, you know, if you're racking it off of something or you're bumping it into something or just anything like that, it's going to keep that glass from getting scratched and shattered. And as a concealed carry optic, which is what this is designed to be, it's not that big of a deal, but it's nice to have that protection anyway, just in case, you know, you drop it or it gets banged around. But really looks and feels nice on this big Glock 10 millimeter. And looking down it, you know, it's the same size thereabouts as an RMR. It's definitely not like your Holosun EPS size window. It's a little bit bigger, but this is a nice size window for use definitely on a concealed carry pistol like a 43 or 48, but it doesn't look bad on this 10 millimeter. I've shot many rounds through this thing, and it's super easy to pick up and pretty nice dot. So what did we find out after thousands of rounds with this optic? So I had never heard of Cyelee before. I was a late adopter to the red dots on pistol whole sphere of accessories. So the only red dots that I own are Holosun. I have a 507C version 2, and I have a EPS, enclosed pistol sight. So I've really come to love pistol red dots, and I think that they're the future, and that's the only way to really shoot a pistol nowadays. But that's, my experience is limited to them. I've shot RMRs, I've shot others, Acros, stuff like that, but I had never seen this brand before. So when they reached out to us, I was kind of skeptic and said, yeah, we'll give it a shot and see what it's all about. So in the testing process, we did not, you know, smash this optic. We did not drive nails with it or do anything crazy like that. You know, when we started testing it, we just wanted to put as many rounds as possible through this thing so that we could see how it's going to hold up over time. You know, I could come out here and drop it and, you know, smash it around and all that, but that's not really going to give you a good, you know, feel for the optic's longevity. You know, I may be able to drop it 5 times directly onto the optic before the glass breaks, but are you going to be doing that with your concealed carry pistol? I don't think so. So that's kind of why we went for a more long-term test. We've got close to 1,000 rounds of 9 through this thing, and getting close to 100 rounds of 10 millimeter on this optic. So, you know, we're going for a long-term review. We're going to keep this in our rotation and keep it on this pistol primarily, and we're going to come back, you know, 5,000, 10,000 rounds down the road, however long that may take, and give an update on how this optic is doing. Because, you know, I don't throw my guns around, I don't drop them, I don't smash them into things, so that's not a real world test, I don't think, for the durability and longevity of an optic. But, you know, how does this thing act after it's had 5,000 rounds of 10 millimeter pass through it? That's more what I would be interested to know compared to how many times you can drop it before it shatters. So just kind of, that's how we're going with our testing. So after hundreds and hundreds of rounds of 9 millimeter and a lot of 10 millimeter, which isn't too cheap, by the way, I've come to find out that this is a pretty decent red dot. So I would kind of tier it. You have your really cheap red dots like your True Glows and your other Amazon brands. And then you have a little bit higher end. I don't know exactly some of the brands, but you're looking at about your $100 whereas the first tier would be about $40, second tier would be like $100. And then this is right at that, right below the Hollow Sun, right below the Vortec. You're looking at about 200, 220, something like that for this red dot. And then you step it up, your Hollow Suns are going to start at like the 300s for the pistol red dots anyway. But for 200, 220 that this thing runs, I think it's actually a pretty good deal. So this, like I said earlier, is for the 43X, 48, 365 series of pistols. So this is a red dot for a smaller gun. It has the 407K, 507K footprint. So I had to get an adapter plate to mount it on this Glock 40 10 millimeter. But as you can see, it doesn't look all that out of place on this pistol. This is actually a pretty big red dot to be designed for the smaller concealed carry pistols like the 43, 43X and so forth. So this thing, when it was on my Glock 47, which is the replacement of the Glock 17, it looked almost identical to an RMR, like the size, the footprint, and all that kind of stuff. So this thing is actually pretty good size compared to like a RMR CC or a 407, 507K, which I like. I like big windows on my red dot so I can see a lot of what's going on around my target. And this thing does not feel out of place on these big full-size pistols, which I wouldn't buy this for a full-size pistol, but like I said, this is all that I had available, so that's what I tested it on, and it worked very well. So yeah, big window, clear glass. The glass is exceptionally clear. It has a slight blue tint to it, like kind of like an RMR, but not nearly as bad as an RMR. Hollow Sun has really clear glass, like almost crystal clear, so it's not to that level, and it's also not to the level of an RMR, but it's closer to clear than it is to blue, which I really like. I like clear, like untinted glass, and this is pretty close. But for now, it's doing me just fine. So what I really love about this gun is the trigger. We have a Cyelee SSAE super semi-automatic enhanced trigger, and this thing is just excellent. So you have like it's a 2-stage trigger. You have like a 2-pound take up, and then like a one